the original Yu-Gi-Oh didn't necessarily start out as full on about the card game all the time. It
Yeah, it
was
wasn't
about
Duel
like
Monsters.
they did like a bunch of different games, and Yamayugi was a asshole and straight up killing people. But
Yep.
then eventually, like there was a part where they did do a card game, and that part became so popular, and he kind of expanded that part of it, and that Yu-Gi-Oh's identity ended up becoming based around that Duel Monsters
Yeah,
concept.
so what's cool about that is the premise of the original Shadow games, right? Before it was Duel Monsters, was kids get bullied and Yami Yugi challenges these people to a shadow game. And
Hmm.
if they lose, they get punished. And punishment usually meant death.
Yeah, and
So
this also keys into why he's called the King of Games. It's because like in regular Yu-Gi-Oh, you never really think about it if you don't think about it, I guess. But
yeah.
he's the king of a game. You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
like
yeah.
in original Yu-Gi-Oh, he's the because each time like he plays like there's one where they're like tied together by a string and they're on like both sides of a fucking roof, like a pointed roof, and
Yeah.
they're and like they play some crazy game. Like I don't remember exactly what it was, but there was one where like the guy has gasoline on his fist and he has like a lit lighter, and it's like he has to like catch something before it falls, but if he does it, he lights himself on fire. Like some nonsense. And Yami was
Yeah.
on some
It's
shit.
dark. It's very dark, but essentially it was an anti-bullying manga.
Yeah.
It's in a weird way. Like when you really think about it, he always challenged people who were like criminal or bullies of
Mm-hmm.
kids. And I don't know if it's because maybe the creator actually himself has experienced something like this. Pretty much almost all kids have experienced some level of bullying, even if it didn't fully affect you. But
Yeah.
just the idea of a bully, everyone has experienced in some way someone trying to bully them or actually bullying them. And especially when you're different like us, when you're a nerd, when you're like just different, people tend to bully you more. So it makes perfect sense that someone in that world would make this type of story basically revenge on bullies. And every time they lost one of the shadow games, they just
I
lost their life. It was
I
very crazy.
real life almost got killed over it. Like I don't know if I told the story, but over Yu-Gi-Oh and over like being bullied. There was a time I had a friend that I played Yu-Gi-Oh with all the time,
Yeah.
and we played blah blah blah, and then I had moved with my dad for like a year or two, and then I came back to my old neighborhood like during the summer to hang out, and I met him. And over those 2 years, he became what I like to call a cool kid. A cool kid,
Oh
someone who
god.
completely is like he kind of rejects all the shit that he used to that was like actually fun or whatever.
And
He's
he used to
cool.
blatantly love.
Yeah, that he blatantly loved. He makes fun of it now. Now he just like does drugs all the time and like gets drunk. And if you do drugs, smoke, I don't give a fuck. My problem is that when you're just like, oh no, man, like I don't watch anime anymore. Like I smoke once.
Or they pretend like they never did,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's even
So that's the thing. I saw that he was being a cool kid, and then so me being me, I was like, hey man, like remember when we used to play Yu-Gi-Oh? And he's like around his new cool kid friends,
yeah, yeah.
and he was like, nah, like I never played that gay shit. Like that's literally what he said.
Damn, just like that.
And I was just like, oh come on, dude. And the one guy was like, oh, what's that? Like Blue Eyes Charizard or whatever. Like he
Yeah,
did that thing that you said
course.
earlier. He was like, oh,
Of
what's that?
course.
Like Blue Eyes Charizard. So anyway,
Of
we go
course.
back and forth, and I kind of like embarrass him, right? And then like whatever, and then like I leave, and then hours later that night, like at 10 o'clock at night, he calls me up and he's like, "Oh, my bad," like whatever, um, like whatever he says, and then like he wants to hang out or whatever, and then I'm like, okay, and I'm on my way home. So I was like, "Oh, I'll meet you here," and so on my way home, I see him and I walk up to him, and he's like, "Oh, hey." And then as I walk up to him, like three guys come up from behind him, and it's the guys that he had with him earlier. And then the one dude takes his shirt off and immediately comes over, and they just fucking jump me. And so I'm
Oh.
like fighting these guys, and the one dude's way bigger than me. He's muscular as shit. So I'm fighting him, I'm holding my own, but I'm kind of like
You're getting jumped, so
I'm
it's
getting jumped. You know what I mean? I'm not.
it's not a fair fight to
And then
begin with.
in this happening, I see, and I still remember his name. Obviously, I'm not going to say it, but I see
Yeah.
another kid running up, and it's another one that was with that group, and he has a full-on like butcher knife in his hand, and he's running toward me, and I fucking as I like grab the one dude by his like chest, I throw him, like push him, and I just fucking run past him, and I run my goddamn ass off, and I run up to this person's house, and I start banging on their door, and I'm like
Wow, that's scary as
and like
fuck.
I'm banging on like this guy's door saying like somebody's chasing me with a fucking knife, and they don't answer, like they don't open the door, and I just like run into their backyard, like jump in these bushes and shit. But like they legit jumped me, and there was another guy that was chasing me with a
you don't know
fucking butcher
what was
knife.
going to happen after that because
Just because
anything
like
could have happened to you.
just because like I embarrassed somebody over
Right.
Yu-Gi-Oh, like it was
That's insane.
nonsense.
But you know what they needed? They needed a fucking shadow games. What those kids
They
needed.
did need a fucking shadow game. That's the whole
Those
point.
kids needed to be sent to the shadow realm. They needed to be in the next chapter of the manga because that's insane. Now I have never, God, thank you. I've never been jumped or anything like that. But I have definitely been teased and mocked, and even I guess you would call it bullied because of Yu-Gi-Oh. Like I've had people definitely say aggressive things to me because I'm playing Yu-Gi-Oh or because I like Yu-Gi-Oh or whatever, which is
Yeah,
so
yeah.
strange to me, even still to this day. But again, I guess just because I just have a I don't give a fuck mentality and I'm not really afraid of people. They
Yep.
never physically did anything to me, but I could see that being a thing, in different circumstances. Like if I don't know if I embarrass, like how you embarrass someone, I guess, because of who they used to be and they reject that part of themselves now is so dumb. But again, like Yu-Gi-Oh is great because of all of the things that brought us together in the sense nerds are allowed to just be unapologetically nerdy. I was allowed to Chidori you in the chest at our local Yu-Gi-Oh store, right?
Yeah.
Because we're just surrounded by people who all watch Naruto. We're surrounded by people who all watch Bleach. We're surrounded by people who all play Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh and collect cards. And some people aren't this competitive, whereas like I'm a hyper competitive person. You have people who just I like to collect every secret rare out of every set, first edition, put it into a sleeve and never touch it. And those people are probably rich now. Right? You
Oh,
got
they were actually better than you, Frazier. I just want you to know,
100%.
like they were the smart ones.
The people who collect it when I was busy traveling, selling cards so that I could get to the next event and all of that. The people who kept all of their cards and never went to any events, they won in the end.
They
The
fucking
people
won
with
in
a
the end.
page, people who have a page of LOB Blue Eyes first edition and Gem 10, like those people won in the end. It's crazy because Yu-Gi-Oh sold over billions and billions and billions of cards now. Since 1998, when it first started, in 2002, when it first came out in the US, it has sold billions upon billions of actual cards. And you can just imagine this guy who made this manga, Kazuki Takahashi, like I don't think he realizes the impact that he was going to have on the world when he first
Not when he
made.
started, yeah. I'm
There's
obviously
no
later he
yeah.
did, but there was absolutely no way he could have known. Right?
I
It's
mean, he
not
made
possible.
something that is, there's no way, right? Like, he changed lives. Like, again, I feel like my life has been molded around this game.
You
So
know what
much
else
of
is
it,
so interesting?
go
Is
ahead.
it's not even like he went into it. So, for example, Magic the Gathering, which is like the two biggest trading card games in the world. I mean, okay, Pokemon too, but it's like
Yeah.
Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic the Gathering, Pokemon. My point is though, Magic the Gathering was designed as a card game. Pokemon was designed as a video game, but then like they made the point that I'm getting to is that when he made Yu-Gi-Oh, he didn't really like the intention of making this big card game to compete with Magic the Gathering wasn't his point. You know what I
No,
mean?
that wasn't his point. That wasn't the objective at all. And it's just kind of a symptom of
Yeah.
making something amazing. And then Shonen Jump seeing that and being like, holy shit, this is a hit.
Mm-hmm.
And Konami jumping in and saying, we can monetize this and bring this into reality. Like this concept of duel monsters can become a reality. And in Japan, from what I was reading in my research, in Japan, it just immediately took off. Yu-Gi-Oh it was like Pokemon. Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon had a crazy cult-like following immediately. So much
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that the very first Yu-Gi-Oh event, they held it at like a baseball field or something like that, and they had to call in riot police because of how many parents and children showed up and were going crazy to get the cards. That's how crazy the first Yu-Gi-Oh public event was in Japan, that it needed riot police. So this game has started out. It was an overnight success. It was one of those things that just you didn't know how ridiculous this was going to get.
Yeah.
Bigger than your wildest dreams. But just think about this guy was only 60 years old, right? The creator was only 60 years old when he passed away. So he's not that much older than us, right? Like our
Yeah.
parents are pretty close to him in age. And the fact that we got to exist in a time where we would be kids growing up while that game came out, that we're so lucky. Like that is extremely lucky to like be around
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, when he made Yu-Gi-Oh, he was younger than us, right?
Younger than we are right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it's pretty wild. Also, so you said he. Do we know? So I know he died snorkeling.
Yeah.
Like, was it? Do we know what
I
happened?
don't.
Did he just like have a heart attack, or was there like a malfunction with the snorkeling
So
gear?
the from what I saw, the details still are not very clear yet. They said that the body looked like it had been out there for more than one day, though.
Oh
And they
wow.
said that it looked like a marine animal of some sort had gotten to him, but he had already. They think that he had already been passed away when when something happened to him from something in the water.
Oh
So
wow.
it's a lot of mystery on how he passed. It's so tragic too because it's one thing, you pass away because your old age. I didn't even realize that Kazuki Takahashi was this young. Like I consider 60 with our age in mind. I consider 60 to not be that old. Like it's not that old where you're expected to not live. Like, people live way past their
Yeah,
60s.
like
So
60's old, but it's
yes,
not the
it's
age where people usually die.
yeah. So
In
and
terms
it
of natural
yeah,
deaths.
natural deaths at 60 is just, that's not the most common thing living in 2022. So for him to pass away in this way, it is really tragic. And I mean, he accomplished a great deal in his lifespan. And I don't know, it's really mysterious. I didn't like when I first heard about him passing away and I was reading about it, I was like, man, the first thing my mind went to was, is there some kind of foul play? But we still don't know what happened because I don't know. I don't know what kind of guy he was as far as does he go snorkeling alone often? Is that something that he just does? What did anyone see him? This is one of those things. Hey guys, if you like this clip, we have full video versions of our podcast episodes available on the IMNerd Patreon, as well as exclusive content.
If you'd like to listen to our full podcast episodes or find us on any other social media platforms, you can do so by clicking the link tree below.